come from a broken, a fractured, but your biological moms and dads today, they're not together, and you come from what we would call like the broken family. Anybody in here? Yeah, man, I come from a broken family too. See, I'm from Indiana. All you need to know about Indiana, there's a lot of corn there, and more corn, and corn. But I'm from Indiana, and I come from a family of 4. And it was mom, dad, sister, and me. And my dad, he was my rock star, my icon, my hero as I was growing up. The thing about my pops is that he was real and he was raw. He was always so uncut with me, man. When I was a young man growing up, he was that iconic role model that I looked up to. And the thing about my pops, though, he never sugarcoated nothing. I remember in the 3rd grade, he said, Nathan, it's a dog-eat-dog world. I'm in the 3rd grade, I'm like, dude, what do you mean? He said, Nathan, you can go through middle school if you want to, and you can cut corners, and you can do just enough to get by, and you can use your personality and your charisma, and you can take the handouts from everybody around you, and you'll make it through middle school, and you can make it through high school. But one day, son, if you turn around and you don't take control of your life and work hard, make good choices, and value the people around you, you'll turn around one day and you'll have nothing. But if you build it, nobody can take it from you. My dad was always trying to get me to take control of my life. I remember as I got a little bit older, I wanted to start playing basketball going into the 7th grade. Now we're called the Hoosiers in Indiana. It's a really weird freaking name. And I guess we're good at basketball, but we're not because we never won anything in my entire life. But I was like, Dad, I want to hoop. I don't know why. It was a bad choice. It's like I'm very vertically challenged. I'm 5'7"-ish. The bun's like 6 foot. It's why it's there. I was like, Dad, let's play ball, right? And I said, I don't come from a lot of money at all. We don't come from hardly any money at my house when I grew up from my parents. But my grandparents, they were kind enough and they were going to pour this piece of concrete. And they poured this piece of concrete, and my dad got a telephone pole and he stuck the telephone pole on the ground. And we didn't have a nice Gorilla Glass backboard. We had some old busted down jankety rim. Jankety's the word. And I walk out there on the court with my dad, and I'm excited. It's my icon. I'm playing on a basketball court that I never thought that I was ever going to get. And my dad said, son, you're supposed to put the ball in the goal. I'm like, yeah, dude, I know that. He said, my job, I'm going to stop you. Okay, I don't think I quite registered, but I get the ball. I'm excited. He's my role model, my hero. And we check up, and I shoot, and my dad goes, yeah. And I want to believe he didn't do it on purpose. The ball went, bah. I said, dang. I'm in the 7th grade. You're a grown man, dude. I don't pick up the ball and shoot it again. And my dad, yeah, dude, my dad beat the brakes off of me. Like, I didn't watch that dumb ball go into that dumb goal not one time. And after 2 hours of my dad demoralizing me, like I walked up the court like I was on meltdown mode. Some of you cried, but you cried ugly too when you were a kid. But my mom was watching the whole time, and mom came out the house. Yes, she did. And she said, Tim, why wouldn't you let your son make 1 bucket? I'm like, yeah, I just had 1 bucket, man. Like I was melting down. But still to this day, I will never forget what my father said to me, because he looked at me with the most serious but calm tone of voice, and he looked me directly in my eyes, and he said, my son, he's never going to be the most gifted. He will never be the most talented. He will never probably be the most qualified. There will always be people in his life that are more gifted, more talented, and more qualified. But I need my son at a young age to know he doesn't need to compare himself to anybody. I don't care how gifted and talented and qualified everybody else is. Hard work works, and hard work can outwork gifted and talented and qualified people. I need my son to understand, as he's chasing his dreams and his goals, there's always going to be adversity and objects and obstacles keeping him from reaching the goals in his life. I need my son to learn to see the problem, identify the problem, and solve the problem. Giving up won't be in his mouth. It doesn't matter what he has or what he doesn't have. It doesn't matter where he comes from or where he doesn't come from. My son will not have I quit in his mouth. Dude, I just want to make buckets, y'all. My dad was always trying to get me to take control of my life. Because I want to be real. Life, growing up, life can be hell. And sometimes things happen to us that we didn't ask for, we didn't sign up for, we didn't want to have to deal with. Sometimes life brings us challenges and storms that we as young and old people alike, we've got to just deal with, but we didn't want to deal with it, but it came knocking, and now we got to figure it out. How many of you in here have had to go through a struggle, an adversity, a challenge, a loss, an abuse, something that's happened to you that you didn't want to have to deal with, but now it came knocking, and now you got to figure out what to do with it? Anybody know what I'm talking about? Yeah, man. And for me, there are things that I call moments of impact. Moments of impact are these single events that happen in our lives. They can be positive or negative. Single events, single situations, single occurrences. These experiences that happen. Maybe it's good, you win the championship, you ace the test, the very first time your toes touch the sand, a positive memory. And these moments of impact that can come through hardships and struggles and challenges. Maybe it's when mom and dad got the divorce, or a friend or a family member, that we lose somebody close to us. Or maybe it's some abuse that's happened that nobody knows about. But when that thing, whatever that thing is that happened, that thing that you know, that still to this day, years later, you remember every detail when that thing happened. You remember the people that were around you, the conversations that were being spoken, the clothes that were on your back. The details are more vivid, they're more vibrant because it has impacted you. It is a moment of impact. And even though it was years ago, you remember every single detail. Moments of impact. How many of you can think something that happened in your past that still to this day you remember every single detail when that thing, whatever that thing is that happened to you, happened? Anybody? Absolutely. And for me, I walked into this family meeting in the 7th grade. I remember it vividly. My dad called a family meeting. My dad was to my right, my mom across from me, my sister to my left. My back was to the sink and to the stove and to the fridge. I remember every single detail. The kitchen table that I was sitting at, it was a huge kitchen table. My dad had built it. It was a beautiful table. It was handcrafted, but it was extremely heavy. I hated the table because we moved a lot, but my dad never got the moving crew. He got Nate. The decorations on my kitchen wall, they're the most ugliest, hideous, disgusting 1970 faded pieces of weird ceramic fruit. Kitchen was ugly, y'all. But I remember every detail because my mom looked at my dad and my dad looked at my mom and my dad began to say these words, "Nikki, Nathan, we need to talk to you. Things aren't what they seem." And me and your mom, we're going to be divorcing and separating. And it blindsided me because even growing up, my parents never fought in front of me. I'm not overstating it. I'm not embellishing it. I'm not exaggerating it. Growing up, my parents never fought in front of me. I thought I had a picture-perfect family. And I sat down at this table, and in that moment, and everything that I thought was built on a house of truth came crumbling down. Because, see, the truth is, growing up, I was never allowed in my parents' bedroom. The reason being, I got one speed, y'all. It's called squirrel. I go. When I was a kid, I broke everything. So my parents are like, hey, the bedroom is off limits. We have to have some kind of place where we can have peace and quiet. I get it. But when the divorce began to happen and my dad was slowly ripped out of my life, and as I began to ask questions and trying to process and figure out to navigate the storms, I began to realize that behind the bedroom door, my parents weren't who they said they were. Behind the bedroom doors where the verbal, the mental, the emotional abuse happened. Behind the bedroom doors where the drugs and the alcohol happened. And I remember when I asked it and I found the truth, I looked at my dad and I said, I'm never going to be like you. I don't need you in my life. And he said, Nathan, we were just trying to protect you so you can focus on school. And I understand their why. I got a baby girl that's 3 right now, my son's 7. And when me and my wife have a disagreement, we try to protect them from our kids too. I get the why, I understand, but it didn't change the fact that I felt lied to and betrayed. And I looked at my dad and I said, I'm never gonna do that. See, the truth is, I learned to do something really well. I learned from them. And many of us all across this country, young and old alike, we've learned to do the exact same thing that I learned to do too when I was younger. I learned to do what they learned to do. I learned to put on my fake face, my fake smile, and I could walk the walk and talk the talk, and I could come to school, and everybody on the surface, it looked like Nathan was fine. Behind the fake face, behind the fake smile, behind the mask, though, I was screaming, but I was silent. Behind the fake face, behind the fake mask, I was suffering, but I was quiet. But I wore my mask and I would come to school and everybody thought that Nathan was fine and the grades were okay and I played sports and on the surface Nathan looked picture perfect. Remember when no one was around, behind the mask, it tore up from the floor. How many of you in here on some level, some way, somehow, does that mask, how I described it, does that resonate some way, somehow to you? Does it relate to you a little bit? Raise your hand, anybody in here? Yeah, see for me, if I could take a picture and the picture that I took, if I could put this picture in every single one of your laps, and the picture that I took would be a description of my life, the picture that I would put in your laps, it would be a picture of me sitting on the beach with the most white, pristine sand, and the ocean waters would be crystal clear and aqua blue. The sunset would be yellow and orange. The picture would look picture perfect, but below the ocean waters was darkness and depths and predators and prey. And I was screaming, but I was silent. And I was always screaming, but I was quiet. The problem with the mask, pressure busts pipes. And if we don't deal with the hurts and the pains below the surface, that pressure will find danger, destruction, and disaster ways. And we wear the mask because we think the mask is going to keep us safe. But the mask that we wear, honestly, I've learned the hard way, the very thing that I thought was going to keep me safe from all of you, it was the very thing that could hold me hostage.